Welcome to Bear and Balance. I'm Jeff Berckes. Other side of the screen, Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. Lester, the Bears traveled to the East Coast with a 4-2 record and left with a 4-3 record. How are you feeling about this loss compared to last year's 4-2 loss?
Again, man, this is a different vibe, right? Which is like so weird because like I try and ignore social media as much as possible because there's like a certain sect of fandom where it's like how do you go last week from, oh my God, this is no longer the same old Bears. I actually did a poll right at the site, Windy City Gridiron. They have these reacts polls. I did a poll. Is this the same old Bears? Like 96% of people said, no, this is not the same old Bears. And then now they lose 1 week and now it's the same old Bears. Get out of here with that. I don't think some fans are built to be fans. I think the TikTok mentality where they have to have instant gratification at all times right away, I don't think they're built for this. This is going to be – they're not winning the title this year. Come on.
I wonder if it's like the same fans get really pumped up when the Bears lose or something, and they're just angry and they go fire off, and then when the Bears win, they're just quiet. And when the Bears win, the like positive fans are like more vocal, and that stuff gets circulated. Are they different sides of the same
squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of thing,
right? Or is it like the same person that's just like bipolar fandom bouncing off the walls, right? I don't know. I don't like, you just kind of like are feeling the vibe of the timeline. In a lot of ways, you don't necessarily clock if this is an individual that does flip flop or if they're just loud, during the losses or vice versa. So I don't know what the answer is, but yeah, the vibe on the timeline in social media or on the website or wherever after a loss is so toxic.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem to matter how.
Yeah. I mean, they have their moments about like Ryan Poles has been a lightning rod, right, for a while now. So like the first loss, it's Ryan Poles' draft picks, Ryan Poles' free agent signings. Look, Poles he's had his question marks even during the winning streak, but now it's like they want to bring it up again. It's like, okay, that's still here, but like we've talked about in Ben, I trust, man. It's like, I have faith in that.
A couple of things I didn't know where to fit in the show, and I just want to talk about them up front. We talked a lot about turnovers here. The Bears did not get a turnover yesterday. I really thought that the Ravens game plan was sound and executed incredibly well. And, to me, this felt like the Bears kind of played what the Ravens wanted them to do. They can say, well, that means that Ben Johnson did a bad job. Okay, fine. That's fine. But this is John Harbaugh. He had 2 weeks to figure out what to do against the Bears. He's fantastic coming out of the bye week. We mentioned it last week. And I don't know what to say. Like this Ravens team was predicted to be like the AFC favorite coming into the year. They have gotten off to a terrible start. Their bye week, like what we talked about with the Bears bye week, got them pretty healthy. And yes, they didn't have Lamar back, but they knew what they were going to do. They brought Huntley up. Huntley's like, 55% of Lamar Jackson, whatever number doesn't offend you one way or the other of what percentage he is of Lamar Jackson, who's like the best player in the league. But he knows how to run the offense. The guy that was playing football games for the Ravens here the last couple of weeks can't run that offense. It was clearly a fail. That's why they pivoted to Huntley, who has done this before. He's got familiarity in the system. He's beat the Bears before. This is a guy that's got, some ability to run this offense. And he played lights out. Like he played at his ceiling. He made some plays with his legs. He made a lot of conservative throws, quick throws to get the ball out, but he made them, and he made them fast against the depleted Bears secondary. I thought the Ravens just did exactly what they had to do, and this game was super tight until late.
I'm glad you talked about the coaching off the top because, I wanted to make sure we fit in somewhere. It's going to happen sometimes. John Harbaugh, I think, coming into this game was 13-4 out of the bye week, so now he's 14-4. I'm not sure whether it is all time. I know he's among the best ever coming off a bye. We're talking about a future Hall of Fame coach, right? He has a title. He's got a ton of wins. I think when he hangs them up, he'll be in the Hall of Fame one day. They were better prepared for this game than I think the Bears were. And it happens, I mean, I think the Bears thought they could kind of do things, but what you said is exactly right. It seemed like the Ravens dictated things. The Bears had a nice first quarter, but the Ravens quickly settled down, and from the second quarter on, everything the Ravens wanted, they kind of got. Like, they dictated things. Good pass pro, good scheme. King Henry was going to get his. Their running game was good. Getting Roquan Smith back really helped that
good
defense.
Football player.
All
Roquan
over the
Smith.
place.
Good
Oh, my God. Yeah. He was fun watching when he was in Chicago. Not as much fun watching him in Baltimore. But, yeah, he's a good football player, and that is a much better team than a one win would say. And then getting Huntley in there, like you said, whatever percentage it is, it's a similar – they talk about it in the broadcast. It's a similar play style, right? He's not the passer that Lamar is. A lot of guys aren't, but he can do some of the things with his feet that Lamar can. And that was a good game plan all around. And then the Bears coaching staff, both sides of the ball, offense and defense, not just Ben Johnson. But I thought Dennis Allen kind of got pantsed a bit too. There was just a good game plan by them, and a completely three-phase loss as well from the Bears.
100%. I hope we touch on a bunch of that stuff. I'll try to find a way to do that. Again, I will say one more thing off the top before we get to Trench Tribute, and that's the turnover thing, which I started to talk about. Montez Sweat gets a sack 9 times out of 10. How he sacked Huntley there, that's a strip sack. That ball's coming out. There was Bears around there to recover that fumble. 9 times out of 10, that's a turnover. There was the Mark Andrews explosive catch down the sidelines, and the hit popped the ball out. That ball popped out of bounds.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate that was like a catch. But if that was going to be a catch and fumble, that ball just as easily could have popped out, been in bounds, and the Bears have free players in the secondary, likely going to recover that. And then I thought that Byard play, like that, it wasn't super close in the replay, but he picks that ball off. It's a pick six. I mean, he's in that perfect spot for a safety to just go around the lineman before the linemen even know what's happening. Huntley's not going to have an angle on him, and he's going to score that. And so, like, there's 3 situations where in the last few games the Bears have gotten those, right? Those percentages have gone in the Bears' favor. All 3 times here it goes against the Bears. I don't know what the percentages of each of those are, but I mean, 90% probably for that strip sack. That fumble in bounds is probably more like a 75%, right? And then the Byard pick 6, I don't know what you want to put that, but like, the percentages win against the Bears here. And it is what it is. That happens sometimes. That's the whole turnover luck thing, but they were close. Like, they were still opportunistic and trying to make plays on the football. It just didn't come out. The cards didn't come out for him this time.
Byard read that perfectly, stepped right in the passing lane. Tremaine Edmonds tipped it. I mean, that's one of those fluky things where, Tremaine Edmonds doing his job, he's getting his hand on the ball. But if he doesn't tip that, I think it goes right to Byard. And like I said, that's pretty close for getting to pick 6. So it happens. Let's just flush this game down, and it's a blip in the Ben Johnson era. Is all it's going to be.
It's one game of 17. You hope it's a learning opportunity. You hope it's a catalyst. All those kinds of things. You got an opportunity to start a new winning streak here coming up this week in Cincinnati. But let's get into the show. Let's get into the categories. Trench Tribute. I did think there was some good things to talk about here. So let's get into it. Where do you want to start?
There were some nice things. I'm going to go kind of a little different direction here. I'm going to go Ozzie Trapillo, because I like the way he was used this week, right? He was used as your tight end. He was used in motion quite a bit. He was used in the backfield quite a bit. So I think this is Ben Johnson finding a way to get some of his talent on the field, and he did it all in Detroit, right? He did it quite a bit. And look, I went back and watched a little bit, and nothing he did honestly stood out real like, oh my God, that was a phenomenal play, much deserving of the tribute this week. I just thought he had a nice game. And I wanted to make sure we highlight him because it's something new. I mean, we've seen them use a 6th O-lineman a few times, but I was out there quite a bit. And I'm sure part of it had to do with Cole Kmet not playing in the game. They wanted to have an extra big body blocking tight end on there. And why not go to Ozzie? Plus, it gets Ozzie juiced up, right? So now here he is. So he may be your swing tackle with Braxton Jones out. Maybe now having him play both sides of the line and in-game action will kind of get him more used to playing on the left side a little bit.
We talked about Ozzie being the sixth offensive lineman and taking advantage of that athleticism and the big body. And so it was really good to see that. Believe it or not, I don't want to necessarily spoil the category after the break, but this is who I had for the hot bowl of porridge because I felt like it was really hard to find a hot bowl here because I don't think anybody really stuck out with like a really great individual performance. But I wanted to like highlight that this was what we had talked about. We were excited about. Here it is. I thought he moves pretty well for as big as he is. I mean, this is a giant human being, and he looks like he moves pretty well. And like, again, get him into game action, get him some reps. Like I loved it. Right. That to me, like that was a pretty good highlight. So I actually gave him the hot bowl of porridge.
Is Ozzie the biggest puller ever? I mean, the biggest man in motion. Who else has gone in motion at 6'8"? I mean, that's a big ass dude going in motion.
Yeah, no, there's just I mean, there's like a weird cutoff for football players, right? Like at some point, the height becomes like a disadvantage because you just like can cut the guy down or whatever it is. And guys that are like that tall, they gravitate towards basketball as opposed to playing football because like their body's just not built right? Like there's these weird like size thresholds and different positions have size thresholds, and you get too tall, and it's just like you're not playing football, man. You're going to play basketball. So. All right. So my Trent's tribute, I just wanted to, the tackle for the Bears, Darnell Wright. He's fun to watch. He's a good football player. I saw the stat, but I can't remember if it was, 5 pressures in 6 games or 6 pressures in 5 games or whatever it is. It's not a lot. And, he obviously had an injury that, cost him a little bit of time, but he's playing through that and he's doing a good job. I mean, this is a really good football player, and we don't talk about him enough, even though we talk about him a lot on this show. I just don't think the fandom necessarily appreciates it because generally, like a great offensive lineman, you don't appreciate unless the national broadcast is calling him out. Yeah. And so I think we need to talk about him as much as possible because this is a really good football player. He's going to get paid handsomely in the very near future, and particularly like he might be asked to make a big switch, right? The whole moving right to left, that might be a thing that happens maybe this season, maybe the off season. I would think maybe the off season is more likely so that they could bring in Ozzie Trapillo as your right tackle, who seems to project a little bit better over there. So, I mean, it's not crazy to say that, this is one of your 3 or 4 best players on the football team. And I don't think that's a crazy thing to say at all. And so going and watching him individually during these games, even if it's kind of a low light kind of game, he stands out to me as a guy who's really doing a good job.
Yeah, I love that he's playing right tackle too, because we've talked about it quite a bit on the show. I wrote about it several times. Look, the era of the left tackle having to be the premier guy that ended. That ended as soon as defenses realized I can rush my stud pass rusher against your right tackle. He's like, why would I rush him against your left tackle when that's your best player? So we've seen a shift around the NFL. Some teams have their best offensive lineman at right tackle. The Lions do. The Lions have it. So that's where Ben Johnson came from. So yeah, I like Darnell Wright over there. I thought he had a nice game as well. So that's a good pick for Trent's tribute this week.
Let's move on. We're gonna go with caught up in a numbers game as the next category. So what stat stood out to you as something to talk about tonight?
I got mine more of a year-long thing, and my number is 279.
Son of a gun. We have the same stat.
That is the number, the yardage differential of the penalties on the season for this Chicago Bears Ben Johnson coach team. 72 penalties, 533 yards for the Bears. Their opponents were flagged 36 times for 254, a difference of 279 yards. And it's unacceptable. And look, I had someone on social media say, oh, look at all the times that the Bears were called with a bogus call. Okay, there's been a few of those, but look, there's also several pre-snap penalties. Those aren't bogus. If you're jumping off sides, that's not a bogus penalty. If you're lining up incorrectly, that's not a bogus. Well, the one with Eggs Benedict, that was a bogus. He was on the line, yeah. But for the most part, if you're not lined up,
false start on Joe Thuney. Where was the false start?
Oh, okay. So look, even there, the refs are against the Bears, but no, but it's a lot of penalties. Ben Johnson's talked about it. They've been able to work through it sometimes. You can't always work through it. That's a lot of problems. And look, for the first time this season, Ben's kind of called out his team, right? He mentioned it in the post-game presser. that there's only so much coaches can do. They've been harping on him constantly since the offseason, getting things tightened up. And at some point, it's on the players. That's where the onus falls. And he called out the players. He called out his leadership, called out his captains. And he did it again today. I think it was on an ESPN radio spot where, it's, hey, the players they got to correct this. That's on them. And I agree. And it's not like he's just pushing blame. He takes enough blame for other things he's done. He did it at the press conference last night. So they got to get this cleaned up. I mean, if those numbers just kind of start going more normal, that's going to help this offense no longer playing behind the sticks.
Yeah, you really need to see this just even out, right? Just be even Steven here. I had 64 penalties on the Bears written down. Your number was a little different, and then
I think I added up the ones. I think you might have got the numbers before they added them.
That's right. So I think it's 64, which is they're net negative 28 on penalties. So they've been called 28 more times than their opponent. That net 28 is the next closest is negative 21, which is Jacksonville. The negative 279 yardage. This is stunning. The number 2 team or number 31 team is negative 142, which is Denver. So, that's almost double the penalty yardage. So, it is a huge talking point. And I wanted to write down a drive that I thought it really stuck out at, right? And it really shows. There is a legal formation on the punt. That was a 5-yard penalty. So it's a 5-yard penalty, but that punt was down at the 1-yard line.
Yeah.
There is a 46% chance that is a 3-and-out based on historical averages of drives starting at the 1. That may sound a little low, but that's the math, right? 46%. Generally, most NFL drives are going to start 66%. You get a first down. Okay. So that's a huge difference that you have right there, that percentage. So if you get a 3-and-out inside the 10 and you force a punt, you're getting great field position. So the ensuing punt, which you can put on Taylor, he can boom a better punt on that second chance. But it goes out, it's a bad punt and it goes out of bounds at the 22. There's 21 yards. That's a 21-yard penalty. It's in the books as a 5-yard penalty, but in reality, that is a 21-yard penalty on the special teams because you didn't line up correctly. Absolutely unacceptable, right? So then it's 3rd and 3. Terrell Edmonds comes in and gets a pressure. Huntley's basically dirting it. Defensive pass interference on McLeod. You don't need it. You did not need to have pass interference there. That he gets called 3rd and 3, bails him out. That's a first down. Next play or a couple plays later, you've got the bad luck with that Andrews explosive play, fumble out of bounds. The play ends at a field goal. It should be Bears ball, midfield-ish, right? If you're playing that from the 1, and if nothing else, it should be decent field position because you forced the punt and not that DPI. There's 2 penalties that completely changed the course of the game. Obviously, the 3 points that they end up getting, but also your missed field position on having that. You can point to those several times, and these sometimes they're drive killers when they're on the offense. I think you could talk about some of the penalties that maybe pushed the Bears out of field goal range. There are times where the offense shoots themselves in the foot, but there's a lot of this is coming from the special teams. I think the special teams absolutely needs to get called out on a lot of these penalties. And you think it's like a 5-yard penalty or it's a 10-yard penalty, but there's so much more because they go back from the spot, right? Like the Bears would have had field position at the 38 or something like that, and they end up starting at the 17. That's a 21-yard penalty. That's not a 10-yard penalty as it's called because it's from the spot of the foul. So there's so much hidden yardage in some of these special teams penalties, and then there's the leverage points of some of these penalties when they're happening, right? 3rd down and long, and you're getting bailed out because of a late hit on a quarterback. Well, that's a lack of discipline on the rusher. You can't have that, right? There's just you got to have that situational awareness that hey, we're going to get off the field here. We can't bail these guys out. And that's the kind of stuff that we've been seeing. And I don't know where that blame goes, but ultimately it's the players that have to be able to make plays and stay within themselves.
I just looked it up here, and they've had 18 first downs negated from penalties. The Bears have. Their opponents have had 8.
Wow.
Every single game this year, it's been negative towards the yardage differential, been negative. 3 times more than 10 penalties in a game for the Bears. 3 times more than 5 penalties than their opponent. Yeah, that 279. It's just it's a lot of hidden yards, right? Where you don't think about those yards when you look at the yardage totals the defense gives up, that the offense picks up, and 279 yards. That's a lot.
I think it's even worse than that. That's what I'm trying to say with some of those hidden yardage too. So that's a lot to overcome, right? Like it's a lot to overcome. It's how hard it is to stack first downs on an offensive drive. That could be the difference between a touchdown and a field goal and a punt, right? Like, I mean, there's a lot of things that influence how many scoring drives you have. And that's one of them. And it's very frustrating to be in that situation. Yes, there's been some BS penalties. Yes, there have been missed calls. I have less of a problem with missed calls than I do with like when they throw the flag and you're like, what are you seeing here? Or would they throw the flag and they try to pick it up like that? I about lost my mind when on that lateral. It's like, how are you picking that up?
Yeah.
You had it right in the first place. Anyway, I think that's a huge point. We're going to see if that gets cleaned up. I also think low key, if it doesn't change on special teams, you are absolutely going to see a change in the special teams coordinator come next year, because this was an inherited situation. And I just don't think that these special teams are being run in an effective way.
Yeah, I thought the special teams were pretty good last year. This year, there seems to be a little drop off. I mean, it happens. Special teams is so fluid, right? Like it's never, because you're always churning the roster. So you always got to have to work new guys in. But Richard Hightower was given quite a few guys. Josh Blackwell, Daniel Hardy. He had some guys return. I'm not going to try and say his last name. He's going to be back pretty soon. He was a core special teamer. So, yeah, there are some guys here, and you kind of hope maybe as some of these guys come back, they get a little better. But, yeah, that's definitely been a problem.
Let's move on to the social media category, sweet tweets, and let's let you start off this week.
So, Nate Tice, who is at Nate_Tice, longtime football guy, writes for Yahoo now. He tweeted out the Bears defense recorded 3 pressures today. The entire game, 3, which is unacceptable. He actually went back and corrected himself a little bit. He got those numbers from Next Gen Stats, by the way. 3 plays there were pressures on. So there was a couple plays where there was multiple pressures, but still 3 plays in an entire game. That's the only pressure you can get. And then I saw a stat where this is the most the Bears have blitzed all season. So they were trying to get after Huntley. They were doing what they could, and they couldn't get home. Right. I mean, look, part of it is that they're missing some players. They lost Dom Robb early. They lost Shamar Turner. So now they're, stuck playing with, guys are playing, maybe they're playing more reps than you're used to. So maybe there's some fatigue factor setting in. Regardless of what was going on there, they've got to get this pass rush figured out, and it's like, this is the team that they brought into camp. This is basically it. Right. We haven't seen Austin Booker yet. Hopefully he helps, but look, he's a 5th-round draft pick who had, I think, a sack and a half as a rookie. And some Bears fans and some fans think this is going to be like the second coming of Max Crosby, like right off the gate. He may turn into something good down the road. He may even do it this year, but to expect him to kind of solve their pass rush problem, I think is asking a little too much.
Yeah, we need to see more pass rush. I do think that, again, going back to the top of the show, the Ravens had a really smart plan, and they got the ball out of Huntley's hands real fast, very often. So, I mean, if he saw heat, he got it out, and it was very effective. So I don't know if the coverage that matched some of these blitzes was maybe a little conservative based on the corner play that you had available to you. If you could have maybe asked them to try to man press a little bit more when you're bringing some of that heat. But again, you're down Kyler Gordon, you're down Jalen Johnson, you're down, Tyreek Stevenson. So it's really hard to say, okay, guy that was on the practice squad at the start of the year, we need you to make sure you jam, Rashad Bateman here, whatever the case may be. Yeah. So I don't know if it was the limitations of what Dennis Allen felt comfortable with or what it was, to try to Trick Huntley, who's, he's a backup, but he's a veteran, and look at Huntley's numbers. He really played really well, and it's because I think if he saw any heat, he got it out fast.
Yeah.
He wasn't necessarily the most explosive passer, but he didn't have to be because they had a really good plan. They stuck with it. And again, this team had 16 points, late in the fourth quarter. Like, this is not, I understand what the final score was, but like, they were kind of have this methodical, like, let's slow the game down. And and again, the Bears kind of played into that. So I did see that someone else said, like, I think there was 7 pressures. Maybe Tice was just looking at the defensive lineman. The number doesn't matter totally, but because it was a low number, right? Even if they converted a couple of those pressures into sacks, it's not enough overall in the flow of a game to be impactful here. And we know that because we care about sacks on both sides of the ball. We care about turnovers. We care about explosive plays. We track those things. So
yeah, they had the 2 sacks and there was one other play. So next chance stats. PFF has their own way they count these things, but they had it down with Sweat had a couple, Dexter had a couple, Jared had one, and Noah Sewell had one. So there were 4 guys got pressures, but only 3 different plays according to Next Gen had pressure. And look, Next Gen's is based on the chip technology,
distance to the quarterback.
Yeah, so that could have been like I said, PFF may have had a few more, but regardless, not enough. Get to the damn quarterback.
Well, so Edmonds had a little pressure on that 3rd and 3, but it was a penalty, right?
Yes,
it was the defensive pass interference, so that doesn't count because that's a no play, right?
Yep.
So there are some of those things that are probably people are like, I think there were more, but some of those things may not have counted. I feel like Brisker might have had one, but maybe not, right? Maybe he wasn't close enough with that chip technology. Maybe he got it out sooner, right? So, all right, let's move on to mine. I'm going with our guy, Ross Reed. He's at Ross Reed. He says, if you're selling your Caleb Williams stock, then I'm buying it. Sell me all your shares. And I agree with Ross. I am completely comfortable with buying all of your Caleb Williams stock that you have available. Just send it over to me. I am completely comfortable with buying it. That's how I felt in the game. I know it wasn't like a pretty stat line in terms of, there's no touchdowns. We'll just get into the Caleb's corner here because that leads us obviously directly into it. 25 of 38 for 285 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. The interception sucked. Like it was brutal. It's a bad part of the field to make that read. It's a bad throw. Like, even if that even if that corner doesn't undercut it, there's a safety over the top. Like, you're not fitting that in there. It's a bad throw. It's a bad decision. I think Caleb probably was frustrated at that point because the Ravens really just wasn't letting him have anything downfield, making him work down the field. He just hasn't had that many interceptions in his career. Again, I'm still not worried about it, but yes, that was a bad interception. He only took 1 sack for a 9-yard loss. Almost, he was flushing the pocket, and they caught him on the shoestrings. He rushed the ball 3 times for 24 yards, including a long of 22 yards. We could talk about that. It was a big 22-yard scamper, but he slid inbounds, kept the clock running. He absolutely should have known that he needed to get out of bounds and stop the clock, and that did come back to hurt them, and that cost them a lot of time in a place where they should have been able to get into a better position than to have Cairo Santos have to attempt a 50-yard field goal, which he had about the same amount of chance of making that 58-yard field goal as you did on your surgically repaired leg. Which is to say 0. Caleb also had 2 grounding penalties, one of which was absolutely on him. Probably should have ate the sack, but whatever. 10-second runoff, timeout versus blah blah blah. Probably better than taking that sack there, given the time and the situation. The other grounded call, I think was on Loveland. I think he, it was an option route. I think he broke the wrong way. I don't think Caleb was very happy about that. It's tough to put that one on him necessarily, but it is what it is. A couple grounding calls. But overall, the comments from Ben Johnson after the game and, in the presser today, after he got a chance to look at the film, were really positive. And that was the weird feeling that I had yesterday was I was like, I think it was fine. Like it wasn't a great performance, and it's tough to look up in New England and see Drake May throwing the ball all over the field and having, starting to get into MVP conversation. I get all that, right? I get all that. But I'm still not worried. I'm sitting here and I am still not worried. What about you?
In the moment, I thought he had a bad game, right? And he didn't have a good game, right? Like
right
on the rewatch, I'm like, okay, wasn't quite as bad as I thought. There were some plays. I'm glad you brought up the slide, right? He should have got out of bounds, right? That was a key play. And I saw some people on the timeline, some big name, clickbait cockroaches out there trying to get their hot takes out there. And maybe he's just not smart enough in these late game situations, right? And I'm like, okay, 2 weeks ago, he took 2 sacks because he wanted to stay in bounds because he was aware of the situation. He understood that taking a sack was better than throwing out of bounds or running out of bounds. He took the loss in yards because those 2 moments he took the sack because it was a smart play. Watching him play during his 1.5 years here, I never got the sense that he wasn't situationally aware. This happened. It was a bad play. He probably should have went out of bounds. I'm sure he had a reason for sliding when he did. Maybe he thought he couldn't make it and he just wanted to get down when he could and get back to the line and get going. But it was a bad end of half and bad end of the game sequence for Caleb. He's got to be better there, but Ben talked about how some of that was on him. He had a bad play call and he said that he has to be better in the situation. So Caleb has to be better, 100%. He's had a couple of games in a row now where you're like, man, you want to see him make some more plays there than he does. But like you, I don't think he played as bad as I thought when I went back and rewatched it, which is kind of what echoed with some of the quarterback pundits on the timeline, on social media. They kind of went back and said the same thing. Like, it wasn't quite as bad as you thought. But, it's like you said, Drake May's looking outstanding, so people are going to want to just, compare the two. And look, I'm fine with Caleb. I think Caleb's good. And look, all my stock is in Ben Johnson. So Ben came here for Caleb. They're building something together, and I think they're going to be fine. They're going to be blips and issues on the way there, but I'm okay. I'm okay where they are right now as a team.
Look, you got an opportunity this weekend. Cincinnati
stinks.
Has not been very good, right? You have another opportunity after that against the Giants, right? The Giants have a much better defensive line. It's not quite the same level, but they're not like a great football team, right? There are opportunities here for this to click. And we saw Jared Goff, who is a veteran, who had been to a Super Bowl, right? Like, I know Goff becomes this like kind of interesting talking point in a lot of ways. But, he had success in, he had a terrible rookie year, and then he had success under Sean McVay, and then he was traded to Detroit, and then, learning the Ben Johnson system, and, he struggled, and then, played really well in the second half of the year, and then went on to play really, really well. And that football team did great things. And that's why we love Ben Johnson. Maybe give Caleb Williams a little bit of time, considering he's 23 years old. Like, can we just, let's see what this brings, right? We don't need to have the overreactions for every game, which is, I think, what's happening with a lot of people right now on the timeline. But you mentioned a lot of these national level guys are coming out and they're actually watching the game, which is why we always rewatch the game, because we want to see if we're picking up stuff we didn't catch live. They're watching the all 22 and they're saying, hey, this throw that you saw, this was a really, really good throw. This is a high level throw. You're just not seeing this from a lot of quarterbacks. And this is what he did here. And it's really hard to pick that up in real time because you're watching the TV angle and you don't see exactly what's happening, but he's holding the safety, manipulating the coverage, and then, firing a strike. Like, those things are happening every game. They're starting to build, and you're starting to see more of those. I think you're starting to see less of some of the negatives, particularly, look at last year. All those sacks. Now you've got a sack avoidance, and he's not taking those sacks, right? So like, you're taking negatives off the table, and you're starting to stack more of the positives. And I get it. There was no touchdowns in this game. He's on a bit of a drought in terms of touchdowns. It hasn't really looked great, but it's a weird thing to try to be like, guys, I'm trying to tell you, it's about ready to click. But that's how it feels. it really, like, moving the ball between the 20s and then getting stop, stop for field goals, a little bit of a PG-13 offense, right? Like that's kind of frustrating, but that red zone stuff, Ben Johnson's creative. He's going to figure this out. I thought Ben Johnson did some dumb stuff down at the goal line. Like I'm not sure you need to come out heavy and try to pound DeAndre Swift at the goal line. Like I think that's not a very good use of who you are against the Ravens, who I think are pretty good and stout against the run like that. So I would rather spread things out. I would rather use all of your athletes. Ben Johnson, it took like 3 carries for Swift to get in, and he had to like twist in for that touchdown.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason, right? There's a reason why that was really hard. And I get that that's what you want to be, but I wouldn't mind it if there was a little bit more recognition of what you can do given your current personnel. But they had another goal to go situation late in the game, and they threw the ball 4 times and they came up empty for different reasons, right? Yeah. So, what do I know?
They're getting there. It's going to be a work in progress. I know a lot of fans they want it. Again, a lot of it comes back to Drake May, right? Drake May's in a new offense. He's having a great success there in New England. It is what it is. Good for Drake May. I think he's in that MVP conversation, which is where you want Caleb to be, but it just isn't going to happen that quick. And then if it takes a little longer, it's fine. Look, like I said, all my stocks in Ben Johnson. I trust what Ben Johnson's doing here. He's going to have game plans like this, where things just don't work out good for him. But everything to me is still on the right path to where this team's going to be pretty good at some point.
I agree. Let's talk about merch for a second, Lester. Let me grab the coffee mug here. I mean, look, it's getting cold outside.
It is.
You maybe you're a nice coffee guy like me, and now that the weather's changing, you're going to go with a hot cup of coffee. I think I had my first hot cup of coffee at my desk today. I'm wearing the hoodie, right? It feels good. Who wouldn't want a bare and balanced coffee mug? A little Second City Gridiron on the back there. That's good stuff. There's a lot of coffee mugs on the website. There's pint glasses if you prefer to have your Second City Gridiron merch be at night with a cold and frosty beverage. Whatever you're into, we've got the glassware, and we've got t-shirts, and we've got other things. And Lester, holidays are coming up. Hard to shop for friend who's a Bears fan, who's a diehard, that wants that unique Bears stuff. We got you covered.
We got you covered. Hats, hoodies, t-shirts, glassware. I think we got some sport bottles on there too. So yeah, you gotta hook it up. It's this is the time of year.
People are talking. It might be the best, holiday gift that you can get. Like that's what I've been hearing. So check it out, see what you like. There's some good stuff, some good options, some good color way options as well. For those that maybe want a bright orange shirt, maybe you want a pink shirt. Our logo on the pink shirt looks pretty darn good. I'm just gonna put that out there. All right, quick break on the other side here, Lester. We're gonna get to everybody's favorite category, the 3 Bears. Stick with us. All right, Lester, let's talk 3 Bears, hot bowl of porridge, cold bowl of porridge, and just right. I already talked about my hot bowl of porridge. That was the usage of Ozzie Trapillo as the 6th offensive lineman. Really love that. I'm glad that we were on the same page and wanted to highlight that. But who did you have for your hot bowl of porridge?
It's always tough in a game when the Bears lose to find someone that really stood out. So I got a guy, right? Spirit of the award, someone who performed better than he has been all season. So it's a little tongue in cheek because Devin Duvernay had his best game as a Bear. Before this week, he was averaging 24.8 yards return. His long was just 34. Against the Ravens, his former team, he popped off a 49-yarder. He averaged 32 yards of return. That said, I think I was expecting a little bit more out of Devin Duvernay this season when the Bears signed him, because he had been a pretty good return man in his career. I don't really see a lot of juice, right? I don't see the twitchiness, the quickness from him. Maybe he's just trying to find his way in the new kick return game, but I don't know. I kind of get more excited when I see the ball go into Luther Burden's hands back there, or even Josh Blackwell seemed like I don't know. There's like they're moving a little quicker. I'm not really been impressed with Devin Duvernay. I know he gives you the sure-handedness, which is a key on both punt return and kick return, but I'm giving him the hat because he had his best game of the year, but I want to see more out of Devin Duvernay.
So it's interesting about Duvernay is that when he was coming out, this would have been back when I was doing Bears Over Bears with EJ, and EJ had a tweet where he got killed. I remember this pretty specifically because I'm not a draft guy. That's not my thing, right? And EJ worded a tweet in a way that he probably, he definitely wanted back. He kind of walked it back a little bit, but he said that he wasn't. He said Duvernay, he didn't like him enough as an athlete. And people jumped all over because this is like a world-class long speed sprinter type of guy, right? Like he was also on the track team at Texas or wherever he wants. If I'm wrong on the details, apologies, but this is all from memory years and years ago. But he had great long speed.
Yeah.
And I think what EJ was trying to say was like, he doesn't have change of direction. Long speed guys are fine, but like that doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to translate on the football field. A lot of times you get pushed off your mark, or you need that change of direction speed. It's hard to like just be like, okay, I've got a free lane and I'm going to sprint. Like you don't get that often, right? And so it's interesting that he never really found a lot of success as a wide receiver. Obviously, that's what he was drafted as, and he's become a return specialist in the last few years. And as you get older, and as in football, you get nicked up. And if you lose a little bit of that top end speed, you're not going to be as effective. And if you never had that, agility, the change of direction, ability to come out of cuts, and maintain that top level speed, then you're gonna see a drop off in your production as that return specialist. He did not have any success in Jacksonville last year. Taylor, our colleague Taylor Dahl was like, she
was very underwhelmed at the time.
He was not great here, but maybe he'll turn around. So, I think he's sent the name Devin Duvernay. He had some success in the past. You're like, okay, great. Like here's a professional returner. We're excited. But maybe he can't reach that ceiling that we in our minds think he should be able to reach, just based on the type of athlete and where he is in his career. And again, that's not to say that he can't be fine or that he can't have moments or he's not going to break one, right? But I think maybe our expectations of who this player could be are maybe a couple years in the past. Because I had the same thoughts, like, oh, great, like I know who this guy is. I know that he's made some plays in the past, but I wonder if at the end of the day, EJ was right, and that his career has played out in a way that would make that take from years ago that upset a lot of college fans, at the time. That like, hey, that's pretty much how his career has played out, and this is who this guy is.
He's like you said, he's fine.
He's a professional. I'm not banging on him. I'm just saying,
just
athletically.
I think that's a good way to look at it. When he still has the top end speed, the straight line speed, but that's not always how you return. We've seen, I think we're spoiled also as Bear fans, because through the years we've seen a lot of outstanding returners, kick and punt returners. And I can name off, 5 or 6 guys that have been all pro before you even get to Devin Hester. So, then of course we've had the greatest of all time in Devin Hester. So yeah, I think I expected more when I saw it. So I was glad to see him kind of at least pop one off to get the Bears some good field position.
Yep. That was a good return. Okay. Let's flip it around. Cold Bowl, since I will start on this one. Oh man, I've got a lot.
Yeah.
So I start and I might finish as well. Okay. Let's go Deo Adengbo.
There we go. Double it up.
Yours?
Yeah, that's mine too.
So I'll let you have that one, and then I'll go down my list.
Yeah, just again, we talk about being underwhelmed by a signing. I wasn't really overly excited when the Bears picked him up. You're basically signing him to a lot of money for potential because he had never really been that guy in Indianapolis. I think his most success he had in Indy was when he rushed as a passer from defensive tackle spot. This was This was the Bears getting a guy that fit a body type for Dennis Allen. He wants a little bigger defensive end. He's more worried about contain. He's more worried about the run defense. But I'm not seeing that either from Dale, right? I think he got pushed around quite a bit. Here's the thing that surprised me. He had 8 tackles in the game.
Yeah.
Which is like a ton for a defensive lineman. But then you watch the film and you're like, he's getting pushed all over the place. He's got no pass rush, right? Like he can't get in there. He just looks slow. And you're just like, this is not a very good signing by GM Ryan Poles here. It may have been a good fit for what Dennis Allen wants to do, but he has to do more. Like he has to do something else. We thought he'd be a good compliment if he maxed out his potential to Montez Sweat, who's Montez Sweat needs a guy over there, right, to take a little pressure off him. He's not getting that. Dale's been a disappointment in my eyes.
So there's a phrase that I really like, and I picked it up from baseball, which is non-competitive pitches, and it's basically like a junk pitch that a pitcher throws. It's out of the zone. It's an easy take for a ball, right?
Yeah.
And younger pitchers generally have a lot more of these, and they're just wasted pitches, and it builds up your pitch count, and you're out of the game sooner. And I've used it a couple times for Caleb. Like there's been a few non-competitive throws where they're just dirted basically, or they're and so I think you can kind of use it that way. But I actually kind of like it in terms of pass rush, because he has had a number of non-competitive pass rushes where it's over. Like, and again, I don't want to compare him. It's unfair to compare him to a top 3, top 5 defensive end, but like, remember the Max Crosby game? How many non-competitive rushers does Max Crosby have in a game? 0. They're all competitive, right? Like he is going to push every single play. But there were a number of pass rush reps here where it was over at the snap.
It's like he gets stuck, right? He's just stuck.
Yeah, it's just stuck. It's over, right? And you can say, well, the left tackle. Okay, maybe that was just great offensive line set, but to me, it seems like a lot of these reps just are non-competitive pass rush reps, and that sucks. Like, there's no other way around that. That sucks. You got to show the effort. You got to come out with a plan. You got to execute that plan. I understand if your number one job is to, have contain and set the edge in the run game, but like, there's way too many times where you need to be a pass rusher here, and you're not doing that.
Yeah, I'm not seeing enough out of him. And like I said, he's not even doing what he's supposed to do. You mentioned, it's not fair to compare him to a top tier guy. He's getting paid pretty good money though.
Yeah.
You're expecting him to kind of be able to do something here, and it just isn't there. I think he got a sack week 1, and I think we're all
he looked good early, and people are like,
wow.
It has again, why you need more tape, right? And I'll say this, we can save this for another time, but you brought up 2 really good points. 1, Ryan Poles taking criticism for the bad contract, and 2, this was a Dennis Allen guy, right? So is that a good thing for a GM to say, okay, like, let's go out and get your guy so that you feel comfortable, making sure that you can run this defense? Or is it on Poles to say like, hey man, my eval on this guy isn't there, and I just can't give you this guy for the amount of money that it's going to take to get him in here, because he's got this projection contract because he showed enough flashes, blah, 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 blah. We got to pivot. We got to go somewhere else. We'll draft you a guy later on, whatever that is. Right. I think that's fair criticism on Ryan Poles, but I also feel like, hey man, we're all bought in on this coaching staff, and this coaching staff wants these guys, like that's what we're giving them. Right. Yeah. So there's a little bit of that too. So I think that's a conversation for another time. Let me just say, I brought it up a little bit. Richard Hightower, special teams overall. I think I'm so frustrated with. We could talk about Cairo Santos not having the leg. You knew he couldn't kick that, but I get, fire drill at the end of the half is going to be the last play, whatever. Maybe if the Ravens call a timeout there, you feel like you could run a different play, or at least you get the K ball out there. that was at least like 3 to 5 yards. I think it probably still wouldn't have gotten there. I mean, that was so short. It was incredibly short. I mean, it landed like on the goal line, like the back end line, I should say. So that had a long way to go before that was going to go over the top of the crossbar. And then I want to say this, and this might be a hot take for the cold bowl. But I want to give some to DJ Moore. every week we see a lack of focus or effort play out of DJ Moore. And I know it's crazy to say because he had that amazing catch on that big play. And then just a couple plays later, what are you doing on the end line?
Yeah.
Like, I've watched this play like 100 times at this point. So maybe it's just burned in my mind. But the last play from scrimmage for the Bears, we asked our guy, Bobby Peters, who's the X's and O expert. We had him on here a few months ago. Bobby says, I don't know how the Bears teach it, but most coaches that teach that concept, that receiver is not going to sit down and settle down at any point.
Yeah.
And so you watch it and you're like, there is this giant window. Caleb's not looking over there, but there is this giant window where when Caleb goes back to him, if DJ did decide to settle, that would have been, should have done that early.
Certainly,
but he settles like behind Roquan Smith, which is a very weird place to settle. And Caleb fires the ball. And if DJ keeps running, he just catches it in stride. It's not, no question, that's a touchdown. Again, it doesn't impact the end of the game. Like they would have lost anyway, but that's a touchdown. And he just settles in on a play that he has. It's probably not taught that way, according to our X's and O's guys, and all of the like big, X's and O's guys on Twitter was like, this is a DJ mistake. He shouldn't settle here. There's no other concept that, there's no other place that we know of that would have the receiver settle behind the linebacker.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's like he purposely covered himself up.
You mentioned the people online, like the first thing people do, right, is you get these, like I said, these hot take guys. They just want to right away jump out and they want to get the engagement on Twitter right away. So what do they do? What kind of a stupid throw is this by Caleb? Right. And then after a little time goes by, here comes the the Nate Tices and the guys
Matt
like
Waldron.
These guys come out and say, well, wait a minute, this is not how it's taught. I mean, you would think he would keep going. So but it's out there. Caleb's a dumbass for doing this at first. It's out there. Hundreds of thousands of people have already seen this top guy criticizing. So here come the guys later, and you never see the it's like when you're in a fight, you never see the guy throwing the second punch, right? In the game, same thing. You never really see the guy coming in and correcting the knucklehead to say, hey, well, actually, this probably was on DJ. And look, I like DJ Moore, but he does. Each game has a mental lapse. Something happens. A few weeks ago, he was blocking his butt off, right? I mean, I thought he's been doing pretty good, and then every now and again, something happens where you're like, what's going on here? And then it goes back to the draft, right? You're like, well, Luther Burden, is that the DJ Moore replacement eventually? Maybe Ben just like, hey, I want my own guy in here at that spot. So maybe once the contract's able to be moved or able to be released, maybe that's there's some changes on the horizon, which is you expect because it's Ben's team now, right? He wants his guys. So yeah, it's unfortunate.
When you've watched and rewatched these games as much as we have, and then you listen to the coach make comments about veteran leadership needing to buy in, and a lot of this stuff would get cleaned up, and you start to put those things together and say, this is what I've seen, and this is what the coach is saying, and here's who I think he might be talking about.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, a lot of times the answer is DJ. And like you say, sometimes it's really hard to reconcile this because he'll have these max effort plays and he'll make a great play and he'll do things that you're like, oh, he's bought in. And then 2 plays later, you're like, dude. I mean, there was the play last week where you didn't even look back for the football and the ball got glanced off of the defender's helmet. I mean, just like the ball's right there, man. There's a couple you want stats? You would think you would be even more locked in when you're running a goal line play. It's like ball's coming. Like you got to have that mentality. The ball's going to come every time. And there's been times where he just hasn't done it. So I just feel like you got to call it out when you see it a little bit. And I think it's worth it. And in this situation, and I'm like you, I like DJ a lot, but man, it's hard to ignore that there's just times every week where you're like, dude, are you locked in here? Yeah. Are you completely bought in, or are you like 90% or 80%? That's not enough. It's got to be 100 or nothing. So All right, let's go to the just right. I think this one was a little easier this week, but a couple options that I have written down. Who do you have?
There are a few guys here. I'm going to go with Joe Tooney. I mean, he's just steady Eddie. I mean, he had the weird penalty on him, and I think there was one missed block, which I think may have been the first time I've seen him miss a block all year. But look, you're not going to be 100% at that position. It's just not going to happen. So I know right away people online look and say, "Oh, Joe Tooney, he got beat." Okay, he's an offensive lineman. It happens from time to time. He had 71 good reps in this game. Okay, the 72nd was a mistake, but that's okay.
Imagine. I mean, like, that's the life of an offensive lineman, right?
Yes.
Like someone said, like, "Oh, you never hear Joe Tooney's name," and then like he got called for the penalty, and people are like, "Oh man, see, like, oh, Joe Tooney, he got," and then you like zero in. It's like, "Oh no, that was just that wasn't a false start," So it's just really funny on Tooney, but yeah, 100%. I mean, what an incredible addition. Where would this team be without Joe Tooney? To be quite honest with you, because the left tackle position has been rough, and so if you would have had two question marks, on the left side of your line, that really would be a huge challenge. As it is, it's already a challenge, but it's something that can be accounted for in scheme and for the most part, the last few weeks they've done a good job with that. This week was probably a little questionable. I had Rome Odunze, 7 catches, 114 yards. I think we expect that kind of production out of him. I do say that it's a 100-yard game, right? That's great. Not a ton of those in Bears history, right? I mean, this is not a wide receiver haven, right? But I'm going to say for Rome, like, we expect that level of production, but he needs to come down with a couple of these other passes that are contested balls, the ones that are on the sidelines, these like higher degree of difficulty catches, because we know he has it in him. And if he can just put together a complete game, now he's 9 catches for 160 yards, right? And now he's approaching that like elite receiver territory. As of right now, it's like, yeah, he's Bears wide receiver 1, but he is not the like top tier guys that get talked about where like you build your game plan around him, or the defenses have to construct their coverage around stopping Rome Odunze, right? Right now, he's just a really good looking second year receiver.
Yeah, I mean, receivers, they have their lapses from time to time. They'll have occasional drops. High volume target guys, they usually have a few of those in a game. Brandon Marshall, one of the better Bears receivers of all time. And, a lot of lapses where he just doesn't come down with it. But like I said, where Rome was drafted, his pedigree come out of Washington, you expect him to come down with at least half of those plays. And look, the one he had on the sideline would have been a tough catch. But again, if you want to be at that level of a player, those are some of the plays you have to make. Make a play for your quarterback there. We've seen a few of those this season. And yeah, I like where Rome is right now as a player. Again, they're building towards something here. You just got to clean up some of that stuff and, come down with some of those contested catches that you want to see him make.
All right. So that's 3 Bears. Before we get out of here, and a couple of notes that I just wanted to make sure that we talked about the Swift goal line carries, which I don't know. We got to figure that out. There was a sequence where the Bears defense had the Ravens at 2nd and 22. According to the math, teams convert that 25% of the time, which seemed high to me, but we're going to go to the math. They convert the first down, eventually leads to a touchdown. That's a play. That's a sequence you got to get off the field, right? They allow a 15-yard pass, and then they allow the first down after that. Against Tyler Huntley, you got to get off the field in that situation. Again, these are just little things that add up to a loss in a game that was more than winnable here. We talked about the illegal formation and that thing, and then our guy Torrey Taylor had a perfect punt that bounced into the end zone and bounced back out. And it was it bounces at like the 2 or whatever it was, and then kind of bounce in the end zone and bounce back and deadens at the 1. I mean, we're talking inches here from just being a perfect punt that dies at the 1-yard line. Blackwell can win a little easier. Maybe he can get down there and down the ball. But either way, like we're, this close, it's a game of inches. I think there's a number of these things that I was seeing along the way that were just so close here that, they go the other way. The game potentially has a much different outcome. But that's all my notes. Do you have anything else before we get out of here?
Now it's good. Like I said, it's one of those games where you're going to have these. I mean, the Bears had not lost a game since in over a month, right? It's been a while. So as Bears fans, we're kind of feeling a little good about ourselves. We're like, man, it's been, the 4-game winning streak. They had the bye mixed in it. So you're talking about a calendar month. You're like, man, this is it. This is no longer the same old Bears. And then they have one stinker and it's like, oh my God, the sky is falling. No, the sky is fine. The sky is where it should be. Ben Johnson's a good guy, a good coach. He's got this team going in the right direction. Clean some stuff up. It's going to take a little time, and we don't want to hear it because we've been a long time for us, but that's where we are.
Well, that's enough for the podcast. You got a couple minutes to stick around for the YouTube crowd, or?
I got a few. My dog's starting to get a little restless, so may have to
okay. Well, that's fine. We'll get out of here with the pod for those of you that joined us that way. Appreciate it, and we will see you next week. Until then, bear down. All right, what do we got?
Eric Swanson, curious, could there be some tape on Caleb, but other teams have studied that defenses are gearing up to stymie his progress? I think we've seen around the league have been a change. We've seen more teams playing more zone. They're trying to make quarterbacks. It's the old Tampa 2, right? They want you to be short. We've kind of seen that happen throughout the league. And yeah, I think that's part of it. That's part of what's going on with Caleb here. They're kind of playing him differently. And that's up to Caleb and Ben to kind of shift how they do things. His numbers against the blitz are still pretty good. We've seen his numbers against man this year have been pretty good. Last year, his numbers against zone are pretty good. So it's one of those things we're going to kind of see it as they work through this new Ben Johnson offense. It's coming. It's just, like I said, it's just not coming fast enough. And you want to see it because we expect it. We figured we'd have the greatness here, getting the first overall pick and then finally getting the head coach we want. It's just not happening as quick, but we're still at, like I said, 4-3. They're in a much better place than last year's 4-3. Winnable game on the road coming up, Cincinnati. Winnable game next against the Giants. If you handle your business, against a couple teams that you probably should be able to beat, it changes the trajectory of where this thing could go.
Yeah, I think Eric's just describing pretty much football, right?
Yeah.
Like, you get more tape on a player, and this high, intelligent defensive coordinator with his group of guys takes a look at this quarterback and says, here's what I think will slow him down, and here's what we do well. We're going to throw this at him, right? And this intelligent offensive coordinator and play caller that's with that quarterback is going to get together and say, well, here's what this defense is. And we think they'll probably be trying to play X, Y, and Z against you. And so we're going to put some more of these plays in, and we're going to try to see if this works. Right. And so, it's complicated, right? Like it's complicated for how these guys come up with their game plans. It's a lot of, there's so much strategy behind this stuff. And then you have that player development. That's not just one player's development. It's the offensive line gelling together. It's Colston Loveland trying to figure things out with the limited camp and the injuries that he's been coming off of. And clearly he's been making some mistakes, right? I saw some people be like, why isn't Colston Loveland getting more targets? I got a pretty good idea. The mental mistakes, the pre-snap penalties, the fact that he's reading things the wrong way, on some of these option routes, and like, oh, by the way, yeah, he's a 21-year-old rookie. He's playing in a very complicated position. Maybe we pump the brakes on what we expected from Colston Loveland in his first year, right? So I don't know. Like I think that this is why I love this game, is because if you're not consistently humbled by how much information there is out there and how much there is to know about this game, then I think that you're on the Dunning-Kruger curve in the wrong spot. Like, I think that there's so much out there that, I take in so much information every single year. And every single year I'm like, man, there's so much more I could learn.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, so I think all of these guys are trying to take away things that they think Caleb can do well. And some of those guys I think are correct on what they're trying to do. I thought the Ravens plan was great, right? But next week that Ravens plan might not work because Caleb may adjust and understand how to beat that better and learn from the coaching points that when they break this film down and know how to beat that. And maybe Ben Johnson recognizes that earlier and calls plays that are going to be better able to do that. Right. But they're not going to have the exact same approach against the next team or the team after that. It's going to be a little different. So that's why it's always good to go back and watch and see what you can pick up. And I don't know. I'm just overall, I understand the disappointment. I understand that it was frustrating. It's not fun when the other team dictates terms. But I just think this was just one of those football games where that, the Ravens are coming out of a bye. They're healthy, healthier. I get it that Lamar didn't play. Good thing. It would have been a blowout. But yeah, it's still largely the same team that was predicted to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I know that they have put a bunch of L's on the board, but would it surprise? Let me ask you this: would it surprise you if the Ravens rattle off 4, 5, 6 wins here?
No.
And get themselves back in the playoff conversation? Would it surprise you if they make the playoffs? Would it surprise you if they end up, in the divisional Sunday? None of that would surprise me. This is a good, this team, veteran coaches, veteran leadership, plenty of talent across the board, off to a terrible start. Would not surprise me if they recover.
Yeah, if they get, obviously it hinges on Lamar, but yeah, I mean, if they get Lamar back, I mean, this team right now, you're right back in the conversation of one of the better teams in AFC, so it would not surprise me at all. So for sure, we got one more here. My dog is going to lose its mind over here, but I want to highlight this one from Chris, longtime Ryan Poles supporter here. Darnell Wright is Poles' best draft pick. Yeah, I think he is. I think this year, Poles may finally get that Pro Bowl guy because Wright is playing at a Pro Bowl level. I know it's tough with that position, but I think there's a good chance that Darnell Wright gets in that conversation this year.
Yep. Yeah, we know Chris just loves Poles. So that's it's like picking between a lot of favorites.
If she was still on here, she would jump in and say, "You mother effing."
Yeah. I'm sure she'll eventually pick this up. But all right, well, that's good stuff. I'm glad to be back in home territory, and you are closing in on the day when you can get back up to your office. So we're almost back to full strength here. I think I might have one more road trip podcast this season, but this was the big trip. So I'm glad to be back home. Thank you to everybody that braved that terrible audio last week. Yeah. And that is, I will take 50% of blame for the terrible audio.
Half is on me. It was, like I was saying before, I'm stuck down in the dining room until, and we had a family gathering and, they tried. They just didn't try good enough.
Yeah. Hopefully that's the worst audio quality we'll give you for the.
I coached them up. I said, "Look, you got to shut the hell up." I told them. I did.
Sometimes the players got to perform.
Yeah,
and they
just
didn't
perform. So yeah, it happened.
All right, we'll get out of here. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.